ever feel like your brain is working against you? Like those pesky, like nagging thoughts and bad habits, they just won't leave you alone and hold you back from what you really want.
Oh, absolutely.
You're not alone if you feel that way.
Yeah.
Today, we're diving deep into this book, You Are Not Your Brain, to uncover those practical strategies for taking back control of our brains.
That's so needed.
And we all deal with those pesky negative thoughts. I mean, it's basically hardwired into us.
It is. It's the negativity bias. Our brains are like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones.
Right. But this book doesn't just tell you to think positive, which never works, by the way.
Yeah.
It gets into the nitty-gritty of why they love to focus on the negative.
That's the thing. Our brains, they have this like ancient center, right? Still stuck in the Stone Age, constantly on the lookout for threats.
Like we're never going to be attacked by a saber-toothed tiger.
Right.
But our brain doesn't know that.
Exactly. Imagine like spilling your coffee, a minor mishap in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, happens all the time.
But that center, it might go into overdrive, flashing back to every single time you messed up, making you relive that feeling of, oh, no, here we go again.
Oh, 100%. So instead of just like wiping up the coffee and moving on with my life, I'm like, oh, I'm so clumsy. Why does this always happen to me?
Exactly. And that's where the book really helps us because it introduces this concept of deceptive brain messages.
Okay.
And the book's big idea is that these thoughts and urges and impulses that just pop up, they aren't actually you. They're just your brain's like knee-jerk reaction.
Oh, interesting.
Based on those past experiences, and especially those that we had from childhood.
So it's like our brains learned these negative patterns when we were younger, and now they just keep hitting replay even when it's not helpful anymore.
Precisely. It's like an old record that's stuck on repeat. But the good news is we don't have to keep listening to that broken record. The book gives us this 4-step process: relabel, reframe, refocus, and revalue.
Okay, so it's like learning to be the boss of your own brain, right? Not letting it boss you around. But how do we actually put these steps into action?
Okay, so let's start with relabel. This is all about becoming aware of those deceptive messages as they arise.
Okay, so like noticing them.
Noticing them. Exactly. So imagine you're about to speak up in a meeting.
Always scary.
Right. And then that little voice whispers, what if you sound stupid?
Right. Instead of just like freezing up or shrinking back, you would say to yourself, there's that deceptive message again. I'm not going to let it control me.
I'm picturing like a little thought bubble popping up over my head, and I get to choose whether I believe it or not.
Yes.
That's kind of a game changer.
It is a game changer because you're simply observing without judgment, which then leads us to the next step, reframe.
Okay.
This is where you challenge those messages.
I like it.
Right. You're basically saying, hold on, brain, these are just old tapes playing. This is not the absolute truth. So it'd be like, okay, brain, this is just my center trying to protect me, but I got this. It's just a presentation, not a saber-toothed tiger, right?
I've got it. You're hilarious. And the more you practice this, the weaker those deceptive messages become.
Okay, so practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Or at least makes it better.
Yes.
What happens when those negative thoughts just won't quit? They just keep like...
They can be persistent, right?
Yes.
That's where refocus comes in.
Okay, so refocus is about shifting your attention away from those thoughts. So what are some ways we can do that? Like, what do we focus on instead?
Well, the book emphasizes having a chosen object or activity to shift your attention towards. It could be as simple as focusing on your breath.
Okay, like meditation.
Like meditation, exactly. Listening to music, going for a walk, anything that helps you disengage from that negative spiral.
So training your brain to focus on something positive instead of getting stuck in that loop of negativity.
Yes, 100%.
But how do we actually change our perception of those negative thoughts long term? Like, how do we actually start to believe that they're not true?
That is where our last step comes in, revalue. And this is about recognizing those messages for what they are, deceptive. With practice, they start to lose their power over you.
Okay.
You start seeing them as just thoughts, not facts.
Not the truth.
Not the truth.
So it's about building that mental muscle, that inner wise advocate that the book talks about.
Yes, exactly.
I love that.
Yes. This wise advocate is that part of you that can observe, analyze, and make conscious choices instead of letting your center run the show.
It's about taking back control.
Yes.
It's not letting those old patterns dictate our lives.
Love it.
This is already making so much sense, but I'm curious, What are some of the specific ways these deceptive brain messages, how do they show up in our everyday lives? So how do we spot these deceptive brain messages in the wild? What are some common thinking traps that we can look out for?
Yeah, so one of the biggest ones is what we call catastrophizing.
Catastrophize.
Catastrophizing. Basically hitting that mental fast forward button straight to the worst case scenario.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So you spill your coffee and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late for work. My boss is going to be furious. I'm going to lose my job.
100%. Like one little thing goes wrong and it's like the end of the world.
Exactly. It's that what if everything goes wrong spiral.
Yep. My brain loves a good drama, but it's rarely ever as bad as we imagine.
Rarely ever as bad. And that's that, center at work again.
Right.
Taking a simple mistake and turning it into like a 5-alarm fire.
Exactly. Okay, so catastrophizing, that's one to watch out for. What else?
Another tricky one is mind reading.
Mind reading?
Mind reading. Assuming we know what other people are thinking, even though, we have zero evidence.
Oh, so if a friend seems quiet, I automatically assume they're mad at me.
Exactly.
Even though they could just be having a bad day.
Exactly. It's so easy to project our own insecurities and anxieties onto others.
Right.
Creating all this unnecessary drama and conflict.
It's like we're writing the script in our heads instead of just communicating and asking what's going on.
Yeah.
So when I catch myself doing these things, catastrophizing or mind reading, how do I actually use the 4-step process that we talked about to break free?
Yeah. Okay. So remember that first step is relabel.
Relabel. Okay.
So you're just noticing, just becoming aware of that thought pattern. So you might say to yourself, aha, there's my brain catastrophizing again. Or, okay, I'm mind reading. I don't actually know what that person is thinking.
Just noticing it. Okay.
Just noticing it. And then we can move to reframe.
Okay. So instead of thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get fired for being late, I could say something like, okay, it happens. I'm going to apologize and do my best to catch up.
Exactly. You're taking back control, right?
Yeah.
Not letting those automatic thoughts dictate your emotions and your actions.
Yeah, it's like I'm having a more balanced conversation with myself.
Yes.
Instead of just letting that inner critic just run wild.
Exactly.
Okay, this is powerful stuff. But our brains are basically wired to focus on the negative, right?
Yeah.
To focus on those potential threats.
It's true. It's like a survival mechanism.
Right, from back in the caveman days, right?
Exactly. Back when we, were worried about saber-toothed tigers. But the good news is our brains are incredibly adaptable.
Okay, so we can actually rewire those neural pathways and train ourselves to focus on the positive.
We can, absolutely. And that is the beauty of neuroplasticity.
I love that word.
Yes, it's like building a muscle, right?
Right.
The more we practice catching those negative thoughts and reframing them, the stronger those neural pathways, those new pathways become.
So we're not stuck with the brains we were born with. We have the power to change them for the better.
We do. We have so much more power than we realize. And, the book really emphasizes that this isn't about becoming relentlessly positive, toxic positivity.
Right.
It's about becoming aware of our thought patterns and then choosing how we respond.
Becoming the CEO of our own minds.
Yes, I love that.
But this all takes practice, right?
Yeah.
What are some ways that we can actually strengthen that wise advocate part of ourselves?
Yeah. Well, one of the most powerful things is mindfulness.
Mindfulness, okay.
Just taking a few minutes each day to just be present. Be present with your thoughts and feelings without judgment.
So instead of getting swept away by those thoughts, I can just observe them with a sense of curiosity and detachment.
Exactly.
Okay.
And meditation is a great tool for that. But even just, taking a few deep breaths when you're feeling overwhelmed can make a huge difference.
Right.
And another powerful practice is gratitude.
Gratitude lists, you mean?
Gratitude lists, yes. They sound very simple, but they are incredibly powerful.
Okay, I've heard they can be helpful, but how do they actually work?
Yeah.
What's the science behind it?
Yeah. So when we focus on what we're grateful for, even small things, like a sunny day or a delicious meal, we're literally shifting our brain chemistry.
Wow.
We're releasing dopamine and serotonin, those feel-good hormones.
Okay, so it's not just about feeling good in the moment. It's actually rewiring our brains to focus on the positive more naturally.
Exactly. It's like training your brain to see the good even when things are tough. Because remember, our brains are wired to focus on the negative, so we have to be intentional about cultivating positivity.
Right, right. This is reminding me of those stories in the book about people who use these techniques to overcome some incredible challenges, like Sarah, I think her name was, who struggled with like crippling self-doubt.
Yeah, Sarah's story.
But she was able to turn her life around using like these 4 steps.
It's such a powerful example, Sarah's story, of what's possible when we commit to rewiring our brains, right? She went from feeling completely stuck to living a life filled with purpose and joy.
It's really inspiring to see how these tools can help people like break free from those limiting thought patterns and create more fulfilling lives. But I imagine it's not always easy, right? Like, are there any like common pitfalls that people run into when they're trying to apply these techniques?
Totally, yeah. Like, what are some of those things that trip people up when they're trying to actually put this into practice?
I think a big one is expecting like overnight results.
Right.
Because it takes time, right? It
Yeah.
takes time and consistency to really shift those ingrained neural pathways.
So no magic wands here.
No magic wands.
It's about building those mental muscles through, like, practice and repetition.
Exactly. And, I think another big one is being kind to yourself.
Because you will stumble. You will fall back into those old patterns. Those old thought patterns are like well-worn grooves in the brain.
Right.
And it takes effort to like forge those new pathways.
Yeah, it's like learning a new language or a musical instrument. You're not going to pick it up overnight.
Exactly. You need to celebrate those small victories along the way.
Right.
Because each time that you catch that negative thought and you choose a different response, you're strengthening those wise advocate muscles.
So it's more of like a process of like continuous improvement, not like perfection.
Exactly.
I like that. It
Yeah.
feels much more sustainable. Another thing I was thinking about is just the importance of support,
Oh, 100%.
Like the book talks about that, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not something we have to do alone.
No, not at all.
Whether it's like, a therapist or a coach or just, even a trusted friend or a partner.
Because, yeah, sometimes you just need that outside perspective, that encouragement.
Yeah, just to like, remind us when we're stuck in those old patterns.
Exactly. And to remind us that, because it's so easy to forget, but you are not your brain.
Right.
You have the power to choose your thoughts and really ultimately shape your own destiny.
This whole conversation has just been so empowering. I feel like I have like a whole new like toolkit for dealing with like those pesky negative thoughts and habits.
I'm so glad. That's wonderful to hear. And just remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
So just keep practicing these tools and you will continue to grow and evolve.
I love it. Well, that is all the time we have for today's deep dive, but I want to leave you, the listener, with this. If our brains are wired to focus on the negative, how can we consciously choose to focus on the positive and actually rewire those pathways? What small steps can you take today, even just like one small step, to start cultivating your own inner wise advocate and break free from those deceptive brain messages? Because remember, you have the power to change your relationship with your thoughts and create a more fulfilling life.
So well said. You are not your brain. You are the one in control.